All right, we did it. So first things first, let me turn this music down a little bit. The bottom center of the screen says that we have that we've completed 67 games in 2024 and 514 since we started doing this in 2020. Those numbers need to be updated. We've now beaten 68 games in 2024 and 515 since we started doing this. Let's go. All right, let's talk about the ups and downs of Nobody Wants to Die. Well, let's start by saying this. I've never played a game quite like this. As far as describing what it is a narrative-heavy, linear, cinematic detective story. And it is not a walking sim. The gameplay really consists of deduction, detective work, putting clues together, examining evidence, yada yada yada. I have played games like that before, a couple. Games like The Sinking City while there is combat in that game and there's not combat in this, there's like, you have to do some detective work, right? It's like finding clues, tying them together, finding links, all that stuff, deducing, yada yada. So I played a couple of games like that before. This one probably has the coolest backdrop of any game like that I've ever played. The combination of the Blade Runner futurism combined with the Art Deco Rapture-esque BioShock style Norman Rockefeller architecture and like 1920s cultural like the automobiles, the buildings, the clothes. It was all very film noir, very 1920s. Very, very roaring 20s kind of a feel. That's a really cool aesthetic. It's very cool. The world they have built here is very cool. And the idea of the story with all of this, immortality, but is it really? And like the sick, terrible underbelly of what immortality really means to the poor and yada yada, all that stuff is really cool. It's not a completely unique idea, but it does its own thing. This combination of elements I've never seen before in a game, so I thought that was all really cool. The effects that happen when you're doing the detective work, like in Sinking City and other detective games, usually it's like, okay, I found a blood spatter on the wall. Let's click on the magnifying glass icon and it'll tell us a little bit about the blood splatter. And then here's a bullet hole in the wall. Let's click on that. It's pretty straightforward stuff. This is like very sci-fi version of that. Like instead of that simple approach, you're like, you've got this thing on your wrist and it's like glowing and you have to move all these meters and while you're in order to like zoom in on the appropriate thing, and then it like creates this whole hologram that you're like fast forwarding and rewinding, kind of like if you've ever played Tacoma, it's got an interface that's kind of like that, where you're rewinding and fast forwarding, like bodies moving around and bullets flying and stuff like that. And that's cool, man. All that interface stuff is really cool. It's very Minority Report. Like you've got all these tools at your disposal and you're doing all kinds of crazy shit. And it's cool. It's cool. It's very cool. It's all very cool. So yeah, now let's go into the criticisms a little bit. The story itself, like the backdrop, the lore, the world, all that stuff is all great, man. Some of the settings were really cool, like Central Park looked awesome. The city itself just looks really cool. But the story itself, the actual story, is confusing. It's very complicated, Maybe I would have understood it better if I had clicked on every little thing. I probably missed a ton of lore, so maybe I would have understood it better. But I'm not very good at holding all those details in my head at the same time anyway. So I have a feeling like the more I read, the more confused I would have probably been. Who knows for sure? But I found the story itself to be, it wasn't bad necessarily, but it was complex. It was very convoluted. I feel like maybe they didn't do the best job of explaining just the nitty-gritty of how some of these things work, which is fine. I don't need an explanation for everything in this future world, but some of those inner workings were integral to what was actually the motivations of some of the people in the plot, right? So I didn't really understand a lot about what I was doing, and the game doesn't... The way that the game is formatted mechanically, it kind of makes that, it exacerbates that issue, because when you're dealing with all that stuff, all that tech and all that, rewinding and fast forwarding crime scenes and all that stuff, when you're doing all that, the game does, I would say, too good of a job of holding your hand and making you helping you understand what is next. Because at any point, there is an indicator on the screen that's showing you where you need to go next, without really always giving you context as to why. And so it was literally, when I'm actually in the crime scene, it's literally like, hit A to reconstruct, hit A to use your ultraviolet, hit left trigger to use your ultraviolet, follow this thing. Okay, you've unlocked something else, hit A to reconstruct. Okay, hit left trigger and right trigger when these things say, just do it, don't worry about why, just do it. And I was just literally during the crime scenes just hitting buttons, just hitting A, X, A, left trigger, right trigger, A again, over and over, just getting through, and it's feeding me the information, because I'm not the kind of gamer that's gonna stand there and be like, well, wait, I need to understand why I'm doing this before I click on the interact button. I'm not going to do that. I'm going at the pace the game is giving me, and that pace is way too fast for me to actually understand what's going on. So I could have, some of the onus is on me. I could have stopped and been like, well, I need to understand, well, why am I clicking on this? Why does it matter where I'm following this pipe with my X-ray machine? Why does it matter? I'm not asking any of those. I could have, but I'm not asking any of those questions. So I'm just like, okay, so, we've unlocked another room. Okay, great. What's going on in here? These people are arguing. I don't really understand what's happening. So when it actually came to the actual plot, I didn't really follow it, and the game didn't really make any... Now, I understand that some of that onus is on me, right? But the game didn't really find any real way to compel me to want to understand. I'm just doing the things that the game tells me to do, and before you know it, the scene is over, and we're on to the next thing. So there wasn't, in some game, like there's this part where you have to take different clues and match them together. And if you matched the right ones together, then it would open up a new clue, and then you had to match two more things together. I'm just trial and erroring the whole thing. I'm just trying, because I don't understand. I read the clue and I'm like, well, I don't know. And then I'm just taking every one, and then it's like, oh, this one worked. Okay, well, and then it's, okay, I don't really understand what that's asking either. Just try every single one. And the game really just rewards you for playing that way. So I didn't really understand what I was doing pretty much the entire time. And again, some of that's on me, I get it. But I think the games that do that really well are the ones that they let go of your hand when they know when to let go of your hand and when to make you do this kinds of things on your own. I mean, this game literally had a button that if you were ever lost, you just pushed in, it would tell you exactly where to go. And in the moment, I appreciate that kind of thing because it makes it easier, but it didn't really make it compelling. The game was an absolute... I mean, to say it was easy is not really enough. There was no challenge to speak of. It was literally just following waypoints and instructions until the game was over. So, a game like that, I think ideally you would want a little bit of a challenge. There was none. There was no challenge. Again, to say it was easy isn't quite cutting it. It really is just that there is no difficulty. And And you know, maybe that's not their focus. Maybe they just wanted to give you the story. But the point that I'm making is that if they're just giving you prompt after prompt, there's no need. I'm never compelled to stop and actually try and pay attention to the story. So I just blew right through it, not really understanding what I was doing, not even really understanding how the mechanics of the game with the investigation worked. It's like, oh, we're doing this mini game again. Okay, I know how to do that. Click A. Okay, got it. Click A. I'm clicking A. Now I'm getting a little bit of dialogue. I'm not really... I'm kind of following a little bit of what they're talking about. Oh, another prompt. Okay, it was just that until the game was over. So I don't... Because of that, I just came away with it not really understanding what happened at all in this game. It was... I mean, I got the broad strokes for the most part, but there are wide areas of this game that I don't understand. As for like character motivations, who's really even the bad guy, like that kind of thing. It was, and the end was like, honestly, it's very obvious that I got an ending that was optional. Like it's very clear that there are multiple endings in this game. I have no idea whether the ending I got was bad or not. I think maybe it was less than ideal, but it was so out of the blue and also cryptic, because you get these weird cutscenes that are like symbolic or something, and I don't really know whether I got a good ending or not. I feel like I probably got a bad ending because of the way that I played and because of some of the decisions that I make, because it is one of those games where you make a choice and it's like, this will affect the rest of the game, blah blah blah. But I don't know. I don't know that for sure. So, other than that, but as far as bugs go, the game crashed once, but I lost basically zero progress, so that wasn't that. I'll always forgive a game, especially at launch, for crashing just once. If it had been a recurring issue, that would have been different, but it wasn't. I guess that's really it. I don't really have a lot of strong feelings about it, because again, I didn't really understand a lot of what was going on, but it did look cool. It did feel cool, the world was very cool, and so when I come away from this game thinking about how I'm going to rank it, and what I really came away with, it's going to be all that imagery. You know, this game has a lot of really cool set pieces and imagery, and it just looks and feels, the vibe of it is very cool. And that's not nothing, you know, that's worth something, so... I think when I rank it, that's what I'm going to be thinking about as far as the high point, is just the vibe of the whole thing. It's very slick. It's very, the setting and the lore and this world that they've built is very cool. I would really like to play a different kind of game in this world. Like, I'd love to play like more of a Cyberpunk 2077 kind of a game in this world. That would be awesome. But this is much more of just a short narrative detective game. And I still enjoyed it, but I think a lot of it was probably lost on me because the game never really forced me or compelled me to get any deeper mentally. So, but I did enjoy it. All right, last order of business. Nobody wants to die. It's been fun. But this is the part of the game, this is the portion of the video where we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. Bye! Appreciate ya. Good times.